Military service enlistment is a constant point of pain for fans of male idols and celebrities. But surprisingly, it's also a point that not many international fans seem to have a concrete understanding of. In an attempt to help each other, we often share information amongst ourselves, but with Hobbies Enlistment just 2 weeks ago, I saw how this can actually sometimes lead to more confusion and misinformation. So, hi guys, Han here, and today I'm going to be dispelling and explaining 4 major myths that I see constantly shared online with receipts. Myth number 1. Idols have to enlist by the time they turn 30. And just to be clear, that's 30 in Korean age or 28 in international age, but moving forward we'll stick to international just to make things easier for everyone. Generally speaking, the deadline by which Korean men have to enlist in the military is something that causes a lot of confusion amongst international fans, even after all these years. You'll often hear people say that idols need to enlist by their 28th birthday, but this actually isn't correct. The mistake people make here, rather than the age, is the actual day itself. It's not the birthday that determines when you have to enlist, it's your birth year. You actually have to enlist by the end of the calendar year in which you turn 28. So, for example, Jimin actually turns 28 this year on October 13th, which means normally he would have to enlist by the end of this year, i.e. December 31st, 2023. The only member whose birthday would actually be basically the same as their deadline would be Taehyung, because his birthday is December 30th. So now, you may be thinking, what about the older members of BTS like Yoongi and Namjoon who still haven't enlisted yet? Well, in early November 2022, just a month or so before Jin's 28th birthday and subsequent enlistment deadline, a new bill was passed. This bill basically states that any male celebrity who's received an award or medal in relation to elevating South Korea's cultural influence around the world would be eligible to delay their enlistment deadline for an additional 2 years. Seeing as all the members of BTS received the Order of Cultural Merit from the Korean government in 2018, that means all of them are eligible to push back their deadlines. That's why Jin only had to go by the end of last year, which he did, and Yoongi won't actually have to go until the end of this year, whereas Jimin's deadline will get pushed back to the end of 2025, and so on and so forth for the rest of the members. That being said, the members can still choose to cancel their deferment and go earlier than their deadline, as we saw with Hosok. Myth number 2. Idols aren't allowed to make any money while they're in the military. Now, if you're an army, this is probably one you've heard quite recently, as you may have noticed that Jin wasn't shown or heard in Hosok's enlistment video, even though we knew he was there because we got a picture. And you might be asking yourself, why is that the case? Well, to be specific, South Korea's military law states that military personnel should be 100% committed to serving their country. And it's for this reason that they're not allowed to participate in profit-generating activities during their military service. As the Bangtan TV YouTube channel is monetized, even if those earnings don't go directly to Jin himself, the fact that he appears on camera would count as him participating in a profit-earning activity. However, pictures posted on Instagram or Weverse, for example, don't generate revenue, therefore they would be allowed. That being said, there is a little loophole to this rule. While soldiers can't participate in profit-earning activities during their service, there's no rule stating that they can't earn profits from activities carried out prior to their enlistment. We actually got another example of this just recently, as Namjoon mentioned in a recent We Live that he's working on a music project that will likely be released during his military service. Because he would have shot all the content and produced the music before his enlistment, he will be able to earn profits from all those activities. Myth number 3. Idols get special treatment or are mistreated during their service. Now, this isn't one that can necessarily be proven with military law. However, we can use anecdotal evidence such as stories from other Korean men here on YouTube or those of my personal friends in real life. Generally speaking, as you would expect, everybody is equal in the eyes of Korean military law. That being said, we all know that we live in a corrupt system. And unfortunately that means that sometimes celebrities or the rich will try and use their resources to get special treatment or special placement or avoid their military service altogether, which is a topic we are not going into today because that's a whole can of worms. Generally speaking, however, this is a practice that is highly scrutinized and could quite honestly ruin your reputation if you are found out to be doing any of the above. That being said, on a more day-to-day basis, you cannot help personal biases that may exist within the soldiers or lieutenants or captains that you're working with. For example, if a drill sergeant happens to be a fan of a celebrity who is now training under them, they might be a little bit lenient during training, or if they have a vendetta against the rich and famous, they might be extra harsh. But generally that's not a rule, that's based on the individual, and if it's taken to an extreme, it can be reported by the person who is falling victim to it or by the other soldiers nearby. I think the only thing you could say is clearly biased would be the military talent show, where singers are often encouraged to perform. But I mean, like, if you could hear Epiphany live for free, Wouldn't you? Before we get to the final myth, I just want to remind you to like the video if you enjoyed it so far. And if you've learned something new or you have a question about something I've discussed today, then leave that down in the comments. Now, the final myth is probably the most controversial of them all, but hear me out. Myth number 4. International fans are not allowed to have opinions about South Korean military enlistment. Okay, this is a popular rhetoric that I often hear on social media, particularly on Twitter, and I know it is meant in good faith. However, I do also feel like sometimes this statement is weaponized to a point where people feel like they can't express their sadness about their favourite idols or actors going for their military enlistment. I do wholeheartedly believe it is nobody's right to tell another country how to run their country unless they're doing something that's like a violation of human rights. That being said, I do still think you can disagree with a decision and express your thoughts about it in a way that is still respectful and acknowledges the decision that has been made. The reality is ultimately, even if you aren't a Korean citizen or resident yourself, enlistment does infect you. Parasocial relationships are still relationships and there are real emotions involved. People do feel sad, people do miss their favourite celebrities when they aren't there, regardless of whether you think it's healthy or not. Plus, as somebody who lives in Korea and has friends who have done the military service or will be doing the military service in the near future, to say that I am not allowed to have an opinion on something that does directly affect me personally in real life is just ridiculous as far as I'm concerned, even if that statement isn't necessarily true for the vast majority of K-pop fans. Also, I don't know if you guys have ever watched YouTube videos where literal Koreans themselves will go out and ask foreigners about their opinions. You'll be surprised to know how much Koreans actually are curious what foreigners think. All that being said, that is just my opinion. So feel free to let me know if you agree or disagree down in the comments. Or if you're curious about what life is like as a foreign fan living here in Korea, you can check out my recent vlog where I showed you a week in my life as a K-pop fan here in Seoul. Anyway, I hope you guys learned something new today. This has been Han from the Haniverse. Thanks for stopping by.